I was told that the first thing I need to do is push this button right here. So, this is one of my favorite places to visit because I have old friends and new friends here. I'm bearing witness to people that I've known for 30 plus years here who remain faithful. And I know a lot of people who have not remained faithful. And so thank you for those of you who have remained faithful to the truth, to your covenant to God. It is a great encouragement for me just to come here. And then there's another perhaps group or fraternity of people here that I kind of got to know on mission trips. And so this is a really special place for a lot of reasons. And so it's a great honor and privilege to be here. I'm going to do things a little bit differently. I don't even know what your expectation is for me to say differently, but I want to talk about a few of the people here a little bit. But first I want to talk about very, very briefly Latin American missions just as in the macro sense, the big picture. It is just a ministry of the Forest Park Church in Valdosta. That's all it is. And I asked them what the aspect ratio is, and boy, that is not correct, is it? It looks really good back there, though. I promise to try to plan this correctly so that the people, everybody's going to look like they have a cone head, and that's okay. Some people actually have cone heads, and that's all right. I think it's 59 years ago, the Bible School of the Americas was founded in Panama City. You can go there and visit it if you'd like to. I think the crew that was here in Panama last year, you actually get to go visit the school. You can go there. There are hospitality apartments that I think some of you here have actually stayed at before. And so I encourage you to go and visit if you ever have the opportunity to do that. I know that's a big deal, go to another country. But I would love to I think I'm going to meet somebody who wants to help us. I'm going to fly down there and kind of be with them for a little while, Lord willing, and let them see the school there. Let them see that it is a high-tier level of instruction and teaching. It's very intensive, 2-year school. Right now we have 22 students. They live on campus. About half of them or more are married, and so their spouses and their kids live on campus too. Just to give you an idea of the cost that it takes, and there's no way that we could do this without our financial supporters. It costs about $1,500 per student per month to run the school. About $1,500 per student per month. And let's see, these are our graduates from this past year, from December. Now the fourth guy here, his name is Carlos. And just to give you an idea of the scope of, you might say, the aspirations of some of these men. Carlos is actually from Mexico, but I believe that he is planning to go to Uruguay and essentially be the minister of perhaps the only congregation in the country. No, Aaron has been there. Aaron has actually been key in some of that as well. And so I want to spotlight some of that, some of what everyone here is kind of contributing to the work. One of the reasons I love coming here is because we have workers here. And so he's going to go from Mexico to Uruguay if he can get adequate support. I don't know exactly how he's doing right now. There's another of the graduates here who is being hired by a congregation full-time there in Panama City. And I visited that congregation while I was there in January. And so these are all young men that are, some of them are actually not, some of them go through in their 40s and 50s even. And sometimes I think we've even gotten to where we're third generation graduates of the school, where it's grandfather, father, and son have been graduating. And I want to just give you an idea of one of the things that the students have to do before they graduate is they have to type up and come up with an evangelism and ministry plan for wherever they're going to go. And maybe they're going to pick a spot and they're going to go there. They have a plan already. This is if we need a building, this is how we're going to do that. This is what it's going to cost. These are the evangelism plans. These are the plans for this many years out, and so on and so forth, so that they can send that to somebody like me, and then I can give it to congregations who are looking for people to support. And so one of the things that I believe I mentioned here last year, that in the past year that I've been visiting with congregations, visiting with elderships, deacons who whoever's sort of the key contact guy in missions in various congregations. And I talked to them about sort of the history of missions and the involvement in missions with congregations. And you'll run into people who say, yeah, we've been supporting a guy for 25 years. And when you hear that, you think, man, that's great that they've been doing that. But on the other hand, you think, 25 years is a long time to be sent into one place, right? And so we run into this situation where, because of maybe we're in a comfortable place for a long time, we have been shy to ask questions like, why are we still needing to support someone after a few decades? Instead of saying, well, these are the reasons why, and we're going to go and rectify those reasons. We're actually going to go, we're going to establish relationships. We're actually going to get to know the people that we're supporting. We're going to bring groups there. We're going to do evangelism there. We're going to do our own campaigns there. And we're actually going to set short and medium-term goals. We're going to work with them through those goals. Our eldership is going to take them under their wing. We're going to be at their disposal. We're going to counsel them and mentor them through a growing process, through the training of elders, through the teaching of how they can be self-supporting and their duty to give to the church. A lot of these things that have just been missing. And so the more and more congregations I talk to, the more, and plant that seed, the more you see people that kind of perk up. You see elderships that kind of perk up and they say, oh yeah, why aren't we doing this? Because what happens when you do that and you help a congregation get a foundation under their feet and you help them accomplish goals so that they don't need you and your support anymore, what does that do to your congregation in the United States? What does that do to Bremen? What kind of sense of ownership of ministry and of missions and of evangelism does that have? What kind of value does that give a congregation to a sense of value to the kingdom when somebody asks you, what do y'all do with missions? And anyone in the congregation can say, well, there's a guy named Carlos. And this is his wife and his 2 kids. We've known him for a few years. I've actually gone to visit him. We've had a Bible study together with some people that live down the street from the church there. They used to have this many members. They're at this now. We're working through these particular goals. They got 2 guys there who are looking really closely at becoming elders. But you don't really find that in the church, do you? You don't find that kind of ownership of missions. You don't find those type of relationships. But it just takes a little bit of intentionality. It takes a little bit of saying, this is who we want to be, this is what we want to do. This is the type of impact that we want to have. And one of the ways that I encourage people to think about it is this. You might say, well, how can we do that? Where's the money for that? Where's the time for that? One of the things I'll say is this. I remember, some of you know the Panama Street Church in Montgomery, Frank Tresser preaches. And I remember, this was probably 20 years ago, they were going through a list of all of the works that they support there. And it was, it was like 2 pages long or something. It was really long. And it's really a good thing for congregations to support a lot of works. One of the ways that it can be done is this. And I've heard some congregations that saying, we're making these tough decisions and we're doing this. To take the maybe six people that they're supporting and tabling all of those and focusing on one of those for 3 or 4 years. And making that kind of tough decision, instead of supporting 6 congregations for 30 years, you invest in a big way for a short period of time with each of those congregations so that after 30 years, they're not only supporting themselves, but they're helping to plant churches. That's what we're trying to change in the conversation of what the culture of missions is in the church. What's the relationship between the average American congregation and churches in other countries? And I want to just plant those seeds in your minds. Have those conversations. Be talking about that. One of the things that Latin American missions is for one, we're a ministry that's trying to work ourselves out of a job. We do not have the intention of thinking that Latin America or any of those countries there, that they need us forever. If that's what our perspective is, then what are we doing? What are we working towards? What are our big picture goals? Our goals should be that after a certain amount of time, and I don't know how long that would be, maybe after I'm dead, maybe in 20 years, I don't know, that the congregations there are supporting themselves and planting congregations there. That the Bible School of the Americas that we have there in Panama City, that it actually is run and supported by the church in Panama. Those are our goals. And that should be the goal of missions, is to bring other congregations to maturity. And not just this perpetual idea that, well, every other country needs the rich Americans. Because they teach that from the pulpits in some places. And we need to do some unbrainwashing, if you will. We need to change some minds and some hearts about personal responsibility of congregations and their relationship to American congregations who really want to help them get to the next level. I didn't really come to talk about that, though. But I wanted to mention that kind of at the outset. Okay, let's see here. I got a few campaigns this year. 3 Yes, 2 campaigns. Those are the campaigns that Spencer used to do. And we have 2 medical campaigns that John Farber does. And I'll talk about the camp in just a moment. But the Yes, 2 campaigns, look, if you want to go on a medical campaign, I would love for you to go on a medical campaign. But I would really love for you to go with me on one of my campaigns, because that's just how I am. I would rather you go with me than anybody else, all right? And so, look, the Panama campaign, there's a lot of people from here that are going, and apparently Chad was just informed that he's supposed to go, and we've been telling him that. But one of the reasons why he's been holding back on that is because we get done on a Saturday, and then on Sunday we start camp, that session of camp. And it's sort of like why the president and the vice president don't ride in the same plane, that kind of an idea. We're thinking if we both get delayed there, then camp's just not going to start. But maybe we can work that out. The deadline for, look, the Panama campaign, if you want to go on that, I know the guy who's in charge of that campaign. That's me. And I can still get you in even though the deadline's way past. The Costa Rica campaign, that right now that has our least amount of people, but it's pretty good. It's pretty good size. But the deadline for that was yesterday. But like I said, I know the guy in charge. I can squeeze you into that one too. I would love for you to go there. Looks like we're going to have a lot of people going to Peru, but there's still room for that one if you'd like to go to Peru as well. Now, let's see. I'm leaving a bunch of these schedules in the back so that you can see when the different campaigns are. Also has the camp on there too. But I also want to talk about this. I grew up going to Backwoods Christian Camp since I was, I think 85 or 86 was my first year. My parents went to school with John Rice. And so I've known that family for years and years. And so Brent asked me, he asked me a couple of years ago, 3 or 4 years ago, if I would, I was actually doing a session with him and Nathan Kidwell. Then he asked me if I would like to maybe partner with someone and do an evangelism type week. And then COVID happens, and then a lot of other things happen, and then I end up with Latin American missions. And he has invited me, and I brought Chad with me, to do a week where we focus on missions and evangelism, but really what it is this. It's going to be showing people. We're going to have people who are evangelists and people who are missionaries there that week. And what we're going to do is show whoever's there, young people, old people alike, we're going to show them the different types of mission works that there are, the different types of opportunities that there are. I know that when I was young, I didn't know anything about it. I heard about missionaries, but I never did anything until I was much, much, much older. And I really regret that. And I know some people who are in their teen years and they go and they say, well, I regret that I put it off so long. And I'm thinking, well, you're ahead of a lot of people. But there's 2 things that we need to do with very young people. The first one is to show them, yes, give them permission, so to speak. Yes, you can go and you can be exposed to places that will train you how to be uncomfortable for the sake of people's souls. That's kind of in a short version of one of the main things that a campaign will do for you. Is it will train you and change your perspective, kind of takes your brain out, tweaks it a little, puts it back in, and you come back and you're a totally different person. your perspective has changed, your idea of the world has changed, your idea of the value of a soul, there's just something that's different. You're never the same when you go. And so, teaching young people that they need to be exposed to this, that they can contribute to it, that they bring value to that, that's something that we just can't wait. We can't wait to do that until they're adults. Another thing is this, and I know I didn't get this. We're going to train, everybody that's there, we're going to train how to do evangelism. Am I correct that, was Rob Whitaker here recently? He's coming soon. I for some reason I thought that he had come earlier this year. Well, one of the things about Rob is that he has a lot of principles that work. And so there are a lot of other principles and strategies and different types of Bible studies. And I'm totally going to plagiarize all those things. Well, really what I'm going to do is I'm going to give credit where credit is due, but I want to take the things that I've seen work and just show people, equip people. And you don't have a lot of time during a week of camp. And you know how camp is. It's like you got a class, and then you got a class, and then everybody's going to run and play, right? And so we're going to try to fit in as much quality training and equipping and exposure to missions as we can in that week. And so training young people just how to use a Bible study and different ways to approach someone in thinking of them as a soul who needs the gospel, and how to really go about that. That's something that I wasn't trained as a young person. And most adults haven't been trained. Most of us have been guilted into believing that we are bad people because we haven't been evangelizing. And that may be true. But then on the other hand, we're not really trained how to do it. And so there are some people that are self-trained, you might say. But most of us need somebody, a teacher, like in Acts 8. How can I know unless somebody kind of shows me the ropes, right? And so that's something that we cannot pass up in doing for young people. So that I'm going to leave a bunch of these flyers there. You can register for that at the Backwoods website. I have no idea how many people are going to come to that. I don't know if it's 3 people. I don't know if it's 300 people. I have no idea right now. And we're kind of making it up from scratch. We've never done it before. But we have an idea of our big goals. And so I know that it's kind of your neighborhood. You're a lot closer than there are a lot of people I know who are coming from hours and hours and hours away because they see the value in it. And I would love for some of you and some of your children to come. And I want you to think of it from this perspective. Maybe you have some evangelism experience. Great. You can come and you can put your arm around people there and mentor them and give them pointers and show them. We want it to be a very educationally intensive week along with all the fun. But maybe you're somebody who hasn't had that much experience and you would like somebody to kind of give you some help, some pointers, some tips, different ways to think about things, show you how to do a study. Please come. We want you. We want everybody. It's going to be something that is not exactly new. There's a camp that's kind of this idea that was done in Austin, Texas, 2-3 years ago. I believe, and all they did was evangelism training and practice doing Bible studies with each other. I think they had 20 baptisms. And it wasn't some big emotional plea and you got kids crying in the aisles and we got 20 baptisms that are... No, it was people who they were having Bible studies and they were reading Scripture. And they realized that they needed to become a Christian. And so I would love for you to participate with that and make that something great. John Rice actually told me that he would really love for this idea, these particular goals, he would like for that to be what every session at Backwoods Christian Camp does. That in some way that they're adopting these kind of goals and priorities because it's vital. If you're not training your kids how to do a Bible study and how to be evangelistic, and they're not seeing that at your kitchen table with people, then what kind of adults are they going to be? They're not going to be evangelistic because they haven't had it modeled and they haven't been trained. And so that's something that we're going to do. It's going to be hard. It's going to be a lot of work, but it's going to be so worth it. It's going to be It's going to be great. Okay. Now I want to go to this past summer. I want to talk about, let's see, I get the wrong, here we go. Okay, good. All right, I hit the wrong button. I want to talk about just the numbers. They tell a story, but the numbers aren't everything, right? We're not going to try to see how many people we can baptize. Our goal is to bring the gospel to as many people as possible, and when we've done that, we've succeeded. You introduce the gospel to somebody, the gospel will sort them out. That's the way that God designed it. God will sort out honest and dishonest hearts with the gospel. Our duty is to get the gospel in front of people. And so this past year we had one medical campaign and 3 ES2 campaigns. So we had 4 campaigns. And with those 4, we had 3,423 contacts. That's just people that we met. Now, about 10% of those, 306, were very interested. In some way, we deemed, whoever it was that got them, deemed that they were interested in spiritual things to the extent that they were able to get their information. And we have 306 contacts that we got contact cards for, which means the congregations where we did these campaigns are continuing to follow up with these contacts. They're continuing to cultivate these contacts and prospect these people and have Bible studies with these people. After we've gone, they're continuing to have Bible studies with these people. And that's one of the priorities. In fact, this is a picture of me in Ica, Peru, charging the leaders of the congregation there the last night that we were there. I'm giving them the contact cards that we got that week. And they knew before we came, because I visited and explained our evangelism plan and told them at the end of the week, I'm going to give you a stack of contact cards, and it's going to take everyone in the congregation working together to follow up with all of these. It's not going to be the preacher. If it's just the preacher, then none of this is going to work. And that has to be the culture of any congregation. It has to be everybody working the same plan together. And I gave them these cards, and they knew, even before I handed it to them, because they've been thinking about it for months, that these cards represented people's souls, perhaps a family of souls on one card, and that it was up to them whether or not they were going to let these people fall through the cracks or not. And so keeping these really good records, establishing a plan with the congregation, is one of the ways that we are keeping the momentum going after we're done with the short-term campaign, so that spiritual momentum in that congregation continues to go, so that they have a plan for success, so that perhaps you're studying with somebody on one of our campaigns, and maybe three months later, you text somebody down there, use Google Translate, I use it all the time, and you message them on Facebook, you say, hey, how's it going with Jose? And well, they got a contact card, and they've been following up with him, and they'll be able to give you a report. They'll be able to tell you how that person's doing. I know that I've been on campaigns where I would go home, and there wasn't going to be any clue what happened to anybody that I met. And we're really trying to change that just by being intentional about the plan and about keeping really good records. So 660 Bible studies, 34 baptisms, 3 restorations, 1,104 people went through that's one medical campaign in 1 week. That's Sunday through Thursday, and 8 to 5, I think. Actually, we don't open the medical clinic until Monday, so I think maybe they may have gone through Friday. So that's 5 days, 8 to 5, 1,100 people. And actually, Austin Fowler and I, we were in Costa Rica, walking down the street, and we saw a guy. We were just a couple of houses down from the church building, and we saw a guy who he couldn't get his car cranked. And Austin and I, this is the mindset you have to get in, and you have to think creative. Your mindset has to be every person is a soul, every person is a potential contact. How am I going to get a Bible study with this person? So we said, his car's not starting. Guess what? We're going to go get one of the buses, and we're going to come over here, and we're going to jump his car off. And so we were able to pull the bus to the side of the road, and a few of us pushed his car up close to where we could access the battery in the side. And so I like to say that in addition to all these numbers, we have one car resurrection that resulted in one Bible study. And that's a Bible study that the church there, they initiated that after, or they took the ball and ran with that after we left. I think that was the last day we were there. And so it's a matter of getting creative with showing people you care about them, you want to be a blessing to their life, and then inviting them to learn more about the church. And they'll probably say yes if they think that you're somebody that cares about them. And so this is the type of perspective changing that campaigns will really do to you. Let's see, a couple of campaigns that people from here actually went on. This one in Ica, and you'll recognize some of the people in this picture. And that was a wonderful campaign. If you want to go somewhere that's a little cooler, you go to Peru. If you want to go somewhere and sweat more than you've ever sweated before, then you go to anywhere in Central America. But this was a really fantastic campaign there in Ica, Peru. This is actually in Panama City. We went to Pinamay, Panama. And I just want to mention to you that for those of you who were in Panama this past year, that both Hermenio, the preacher there, his son Josue, and Mitsila and Martha, Josue's wife and sister, all four of them are going to come to David to the campaign. They're going to be coming with us. I think we may pick them up on the way. We'll drive right through Pinamay. It's about halfway to David. And so I wanted to mention, and I just saw Lance. I couldn't find a picture of you, Lance. I'm sorry. But I want to spotlight the workers here. Lance Fettner, let's see, where is he? He's hiding? You're good at that. So you've registered for this year, right, for Panama? I don't remember the list. Yes? Is good? Or if not, we're guilting into it right now. Is that what we're doing? He is a worker. He has his own evangelism team. And one of the things that is invaluable on these campaigns is to have people who you say, this is your job, and you just trust them. And you know they're just going to go and work. And they came to work. I know that my perspective when I was kind of starting to do campaigns was, I can sleep next week. That's the way that people come. They come to work. I remember Costa Rica one year, I was doing Bible studies in the morning. We were doing Bible studies at lunchtime with the bus driver, Bible studies in the afternoon, Bible studies in the evening. We get back to the hotel, Bible studies with hotel employees until midnight. And we weren't getting enough rest, and we just said, well, we'll rest next week, right? But this time, I have to do camp the week after that. So I'm going to do camp the week after that, and then the next week, I think they're going to have my funeral, but we'll see. We try to take care of ourselves, but people come to work, and I really appreciate that about Lance. Let's see here. This is maybe the first, I think maybe it was the first night that we were there. It's Miranda and Cameron Carson, and right outside the church property was a street, and people walk up and down the street, and so it's the three of them. And I'm gonna brag about Miranda, and it's okay if she can crawl under the pew for all I care. But Miranda she brings her kids up to this person and grabs a translator and says, we're going to see if we can change this person's life. I don't remember who this is or what came of this, and I don't remember who took this picture, but this is the type of things that you see constantly on these campaigns where you see, oh, here's a person, here's a person, here's a person. And it's always kind of a joke when we start a campaign to say, okay, it's going to be sort of a race to see who can get a Bible study with the bus drivers first. And that's the way we need to think about it. Do we think about that? Think about it that way in the United States? Did anybody go out to eat today and you say, we'll see who can be the first to get a Bible study with our server? We don't really think that way, do we? And it's a shame. I'm ashamed myself that you go on a campaign and your brain kind of switches into that. And our goal needs to be that we just switch our brain like that all the time. And that we can be in that kind of a zone of seeing through spiritual eyes and seeing souls all the time. I love this picture. And so Carson and Miranda, Cam didn't go to Peru as well, but Carson and Miranda went to Peru with me as well. Carson acts a lot older than she is. I don't know how old she is, but she acts like she's like 40. And she's real easy to be around with the locals. Doesn't need to know how to speak their language. And that's what's really cool about it, is you can just hang out with people and have a great time, and you can't really talk to them. And one of the things that I witnessed was that we were just out in some random neighborhood, and there was a group of kids there, and Carson took it upon herself. No one prompted her. She just went over and just started teaching them. She said, gather around, children. We're going to learn some things. And someone just happened to get a picture of it. And she was there to work. And then there was a certain place at the church building where Lily and Carson, they would go and sleep. And they earned it. You go and you work hard, and then you curl up in the corner and you try not to let the chickens wake you up. And that's kind of the life of a campaign. And how old is she? How old are you, Carson? What's that? 14. I want you to look from my perspective of growing up. If I had been exposed to this type of thing at 14, there's no telling what type of adult I would be now. I wasn't exposed to this type of thing. I wasn't put in these types of situations. I wasn't given these type of opportunities. And I grew up with a Christian home with Christian parents. My dad was a preacher. But I wasn't exposed to this type of thing. And I really regret that. And I don't hold a grudge against my parents. But what I'm saying is, embrace these opportunities to transform your children's lives and transform your own life as well. Cameron, he was kind of in shock when he got to Panama. He looked like he was on drugs is what he was. He was just like, it was kind of scary because he was like, whatever he was on, I wanted some of it because he was in a good mood. He was kind of just at a different place. It's like something, he flipped a switch. It's almost like he was in shock, you might say. And make sure, I'm totally ignoring all of my notes here. He's just really good with people. He loves people. He's easy to be around. This is his evangelism team here, and you know some of these people. And he's going to be in Panama this year. Here he is, just read his Bible. He is probably by the end of the week, he'll have his own evangelism team. And last year was his first year doing this. And how old are you, Cameron? 8? You look 45. Come on. So, but he's 18, right? He's 18. Because why are we not taking the opportunities to give opportunities to young people to be able to just embrace what we might think is an older adult's responsibility when there's no rules that says it has to be that way. And I'm fully confident he's going to start off with somebody this year, but if I have anything to do with it, he's going to have his own team by the end of the week. Now, I met Scott. He was my roommate. This is one of my favorite pictures in the world. Let's see, is he? Yeah, it's Conehead. Okay. He was my roommate in Nicaragua. And if you just met Scott, if any of you have just met him, you don't really know what to think, all right? But after a while, you kind of get it. And then after a while, you kind of want to spend as much time with him as you can. So much so that I intentionally put him in my room because I just knew I needed the entertainment. I needed the Scott commentary throughout the week, and I got it too. And so Scott was entertainment. There's always something, but he's good with people. He's really great on these campaigns. He goes there to work. And I mean, one day he forgot to wear socks, and he said he got blisters, but he's there to work, right? I think he did that, or maybe, and so these campaigns, sometimes they're difficult, and you misplace your socks, and that's okay, and you still work. But he went out and he just showed love to people, and he was just meeting people and seeing who would have Bible studies with him, and he was a good teacher and a good preacher, and. Some of you know Wes Hazel, who preaches at Forest Park. And that was, Wes had never met Scott before. And at the beginning of the week, Wes was like, I do not know what to think of this guy. By the end of the week, he's like, oh, Scott's one of my favorite people. And so I want you to know that those of you who have gone on these campaigns, you make a huge difference because you come there and you pour out yourself. You are your authentic self with people and show them that you love them. And that's one of the reasons I love these campaigns so much. is because you see people really, in an unashamed way, being able to be passionate about this, being able to be passionate about people, being able to be passionate about evangelism. Now Miranda, this is, I think they're on the flight here. This is with Lily. They're on their way to Peru. Now Miranda is a leader. And let me explain what I mean by that. A leader, by my definition, I don't know, I think it's a correct definition. A leader is somebody who moves somebody else from point A to point B. If you think that you're a leader and you are not in the middle of or planning to or figuring out how to move somebody from point A to point B, you're not a leader. That's what a leader is. And so leaders come in all shapes and sizes and genders, because a leader is somebody who is influencing someone to go from where they are to a place that they need to be. There's a guy on the campaign, I won't say his name, I won't embarrass him. There's one guy on the campaign who, before he came, he called me and he said, look, I have medical problems. I'm going to be really struggling. I don't know how to do Bible studies with somebody, but I really want to come and do my best. And so one day, Miranda goes to him and says, hey, we got a Bible study with one of the bus drivers. And he said, kind of timidly, okay, are you going to do it? And she said, no, silly, you're going to do it. And she just handed in the Bible study, and they went to the bus or wherever they went. Later, a few hours later, he comes to me with a big smile on his face. And he says, I just had a Bible study, and I got 2 Bible studies set up for tomorrow. He'd never done a Bible study in his life. But we have opportunities for people to just step through a door that they've never stepped through before. And Miranda has a good way of not taking no for an answer and just saying, no, you're going to do this. And part of being a leader is being able to see in others what they don't see in themselves. And now this year, that particular guy, he's coming back on a campaign with his son and his wife. And he'll probably have his own evangelism team, which a year ago he would have thought would be the last thing he would do, is be in charge of his own evangelism team. But now he knows how to do a Bible study. Now he knows at least how to begin to approach people and to make a difference in that way. I can say this without hesitation, let's say, that Miranda is one of the most significant people in my life personally. For this reason, she said, hey, Cary, you want to go on a mission trip? Now, here, I'll show you this picture. This is one of my favorite pictures. We were in Panama. I was with the VBS group, and we were at a school, and it was lunchtime, and we couldn't get back to the group fast enough for people to get on our bus. And I said, fit all, 35, 40 people, fit all of them on a 26-passenger bus. And they did. They fit on that bus. And they're all smiling and they were all happy, because one of the things about campaigns is that you learn how to be uncomfortable and be happy, because what you're doing is worth it. Now, I looked at this picture, and I may could count differently, but I looked at this picture and I counted, I'm not even in this picture, I counted 7 people in this picture that if Miranda had not asked me to go on a campaign, none of them would have been in this picture. And that's how leadership works. That's how seeing people in one place and seeing where they could be, inviting them to move, and not taking no for an answer, because you see great things in that person, because you can see them do things that they didn't see for themselves. That's what it means to lead. And so I wanted to brag on her in that way. Let's see here. I'll leave this up here. One of the things I'm trying to do with congregations that I mentioned earlier is lead congregations. Move them from one place to another place in the way that they're thinking about missions. Evangelism is leadership, because evangelism is trying to move somebody from point A to point B. We have, perhaps because of comfort, because of I don't know what our culture, that we think that we can do evangelism and we can introduce somebody to the gospel, but that it's not really going to disrupt their life. I don't want to mess their life up. I don't want to try to shake things up or turn their life upside down. I'm not trying to if you're evangelizing with somebody, you're trying to get them from point A to point B, you are trying to turn their lives upside down, you're trying to disrupt everything about their life. And if that's not what you're trying to do when you evangelize somebody, then you don't really know what evangelism is. And so we've got to change the way that we think about what the gospel is going to do to somebody's life when we introduce it to them. We can't give excuses or let them off the hook or say, no, these certain things that are just normal in your life, those things are okay. Repentance is real. A change of a worldview is real. A change of a Lord and Master is real. A change of priorities is real. A change of a marriage and parenting and home culture, that's real. And the gospel will change all of those things. I was talking to someone who just stepped into the pulpit, who they didn't think they were going to step into the pulpit ever. And they were preaching the other day that everybody there knows that person's past. That when they were around 30 years old, they had a child out of wedlock. They were living with that woman. They ended up not marrying that woman, ended up marrying another woman later after they became a Christian, and they've grown up and they're trying to be a spiritual leader in their home. And they were saying, that's where I was. If you were to look at me back then and you were to say, I think that's going to be our preacher one day. That doesn't really compute with us, but it computes with God. You go to 1 Corinthians 6, go 9, 10, 11, 12, where he's listing off all these different types of sins. And then he says, and such were some of you, but you were washed, but you were sanctified, but you were justified in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ by the Spirit of our God. Such were some of you. You see, the whole idea of evangelism, of leadership, of finding someone where they are with the expectation you're going to move them somewhere else is exactly what God does when He brings us and intersects our life with the gospel. Is that He finds us where we are and He loves us there. And that's one of the great things about evangelism is you find somebody and right where they are, you love them. And God, He loves us right where He finds us, even if it's with a train wreck of decisions. And He loves us and He says, I love you so much, I'm going to take you from point A to point B, and I'm going to change your life. And that's what evangelism is. That's what the power of the gospel is to take you, to take anybody and say, I found you here, but I'm going to take you over here. And I'm going to disrupt your life and I'm going to change your life, but it's for your good. It's to have the abundant life. It's to have salvation. This is all about eternal life. My mind goes to the rich young ruler where Jesus is talking to him. Is it over? Jesus is talking to the guy. He's a really good guy, right? He would have been your typical religious guy who has all his ducks in a row, so to speak. And of course, Jesus says, well, you like one thing, go and sell everything you have and give it to the poor. And of course, he goes away sorrowful because he's rich. Because what? Because giving your allegiance to God necessitates a total upheaval and disruption of the things that you really want to keep as your own. And that's why he went away sorrowful, because he was not willing to have his life disrupted. So one of the things I love about going on these campaigns is it sort of a controlled disruption of what you think of as the norm of your spiritual walk. And it helps to kind of throw the pieces up in the air and let them kind of settle in a different way so that you have your perspective changed, that you're given new experiences, that you're given new responsibilities and new opportunities to do things you haven't done before. It's a controlled disruption that helps you grow into a different place in your spirituality. And so I just want to end with really the challenge of the gospel. Are we letting the gospel continually disrupt our lives? It may be that you've been a Christian for a long time, and maybe you've been faithful for a long time, but if you're not still growing, if the gospel is still not putting up a wall in your way and saying no to the flesh, and no to pride, and no to your priorities that are out of whack, and no to all of the idols in your life, and no to the things that are comfortable. No to the opportunities that you're passing by. Are we letting the gospel disrupt the flesh, disrupt our pride, disrupt our wisdom, and saying, no, 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 God has a particular way for you, and it isn't any of those ways? The refining process, the sanctification process, the purification process, are we letting the gospel do that? Are we letting God lead us in that way, taking us from where we are, and not just taking us from point A to point B, but taking us from point A, ground zero of despair, and taking us on an ongoing journey into the abundant life that ends in eternal life? Or are we resisting out of comfort, out of stubbornness, out of pride, out of what we think is wisdom, out of bad priorities? Are we standing in the way of the gospel disrupting our lives? Are we robbing God from blessing us in that way? So I would tell you, if the gospel hasn't taken you and has continued to take you in that direction, then submit to it. Let it. Jesus' pattern of death to life, death to life, death, burial, and resurrection, that's the gospel. The Christian is supposed to live out the death to life pattern, death to life, death to life, letting the gospel disrupt my life by putting me to death every day and making me walk in newness of life every day. Perhaps you're somebody that hasn't let the gospel impact your life yet because you're holding on to it for dear life. You want to have ownership of your life. The only thing that's going to happen is you're going to go down with the ship, that you're going to suffer the consequences of your actions, that you are going to meet justice at the wrath of God, when, on the other hand, you could embrace the cross of Christ and the resurrection of Christ and the blood of Christ and let Jesus meet the justice of God on your behalf and justify you and purify you and save you and give you eternal life. Souls are on the line, and your soul may be on the line. Perhaps you need to give it over to God. Perhaps you need to let go and let God do what He wants to do and take you where He wants to take you. Let God lead you. Let God be your Lord. We're going to have a song of encouragement. And I just want to say, if you have any questions about anything I've been talking about, please come to me. There's so much I didn't say. But I love being here, and I love to visit with you. If there's somebody that has a need to repent or become a Christian, we love you. We don't want you to leave here in need of anything. We don't want you to leave here with your soul in jeopardy or with doubts about where your eternal destination is. So if there's anything that we can do for you, please come and stand and sing the song of encouragement.